Right, Dave, welcome to the High Caliber Men podcast.
Thank you for inviting us.
It's been probably quite overdue.
Yes.
I think we've just been really waiting for the correct topic. But here we are. And the topic is something which I don't feel, let's say, capable enough to get the points across because, well, in a nutshell, I haven't got kids. Topic of the podcast today. The reason why I wanted you to come down is obviously from a crack we had when we went for that spa day the other week around parenting. And with my career of working with a hell of a lot of parents, like if I was to put a number on it, it'll be over 500, right? Parents I've worked with in becoming better versions of themselves. And I see how much being a parent makes working on themselves a hell of a lot more difficult compared to, for example, or someone like myself who hasn't got kids, or someone who, I don't know, mid-20s, mid-30s, who doesn't have kids. They can work on themselves so much faster to a degree. But in our conversation the other day, you said being a parent was a great way to work on yourself, like a fast track. So obviously it sparked a very interesting conversation. I thought, you know what, we're going to have to turn it into a podcast. So here we are.
Here we are.
I quickly want to explain for anyone listening why you're here and why I haven't just got anyone else off the street who's a parent down and said, you know, you're a parent, you can qualify to share your information as a parent and experiences. And the reason why you're down is because you parent very differently to most of the parents I see. You've got quite a few different ways to regulate things, change things, adapt things to ensure that your children really benefit you and you benefit them. I see very much a battleground of a dynamic in a lot of households, right? And this holds a lot of people back within their self-development. Now, in all honesty, as always, there's many times I've wanted to say to a parent or a client or someone I'm speaking to and offering advice to, you need to discipline your parent. You need to discipline your parent. You don't need to discipline your parent. You need to discipline your children as a parent. But I can't really say that because I haven't got kids and I'll just hear the old, you don't understand because you've not got kids, which I may not understand, but what I do see is the dynamic on a psychological, emotional level of what's going on when a parent doesn't discipline their children or child properly. And the effect it's having on them, the effect it's having on the child, and everything else. So I'm half hoping you're going to be able to teach my clients a hell of a lot and be able to, for me to say to them things I want to say to them through you.
Okay, right? So I'll get the blame then. Okay.
Yeah. But sticking on that kind of topic of discipline, and again, like with every podcast, I like to start with a big question. Discipline, firstly, what is it when you're talking about in relation to disciplining your children?
Okay.
And secondly, how important is it to ensure your children are disciplined as a parent? So, over to you, mate.
Thank you. So, discipline, it's a really big subject and it could go in lots of different areas. I see discipline as structure, okay? And it's almost a sense of safety, okay? It's a foundation of safety and structure within a family dynamic. Now, I don't see discipline as me slinging the hook and giving somebody a whap, a smack or a smack bum or getting the cane out or whatever our parents used to do. I see it as me modelling within myself a structure that the child feels safe within, okay? So that could be me speaking to my son, okay, and saying, look, okay, when you get home from school, put your uniform away, okay, so you don't leave your room a mess and you're not tripping over your shoes as you're doing this in your room, or, do your homework and we'll do some reading together, okay, and then you'll have your tea, okay. So my son is realising a structure, okay, he's seeing almost a safe space that he knows what's going to happen and he can trust, okay? And then within that structure, you can have, you can go on your PlayStation, of course you can, after you've done your homework and you've had this. So they feel safe within that structure. And from my experience, I think that all children need structure. And if they don't feel as though they have structure, they will rebel, okay, or they will look for boundaries. They will tease for the boundaries, okay. And through my experience, I've found that the balance of parenting is between being structured and nurturing. Okay, so we want love. We want them to feel a sense of being open, loving, nurturing, and caring, but also have the discipline and the structure. So a beautiful dance between the masculine and the feminine, you could say.
If I can jump in there.
Yeah.
Let's say that kind of thing you just laid out there, if you're going to come home, you're going to put your school clothes away, you're going to do this, then you're going to do that, you're going to do this. What if the child comes home and from day one, it's not day one, sorry, minute one, he says, nah, I'm keeping my clothes on. Now, obviously, previous to starting the conversation, I said I was going to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and we're getting into this quite early, but, you know, let's say he does come home and everything you've just laid out for him of what you'd like him to do to create this structure, he just doesn't do it. He wants his phone, he wants his iPad, he wants to go and play with his mates, he doesn't want to take his school clothes off. Yeah. What do you do? How do you then enforce the discipline and the kind of, you know what I mean?
So, yeah, 100%, totally agree. That is a very common thing that we get as parents. And so the immature version of myself would just say, get your fucking shoes on and get in your fucking room. It would be, look for the quickest path of least resistance to peace, okay? Get your fucking shoes on and get upstairs now. Now, we've all done that. You know, I'm not a perfect parent by any means. I'm certainly not. But what I have found is there's no such thing as a bad child, okay? If my child is playing up, it's because there's a need not being met, okay? So instead of judging my child now and thinking, God, he's just a bad, selfish kid, what I do is I get curious and I wonder. I get curious, why is he being like that? I wonder what's going on. I wonder if he's had a bad day at school, or I wonder this. And it's about choosing curiosity instead of judgment, okay? There's no such thing as a bad child. There is just a child with an unmet need. So what I would do is I feel as though it's my responsibility as a parent that if I've got a child that's playing up, that's being a rebel, that's tantrums, then it's my responsibility to get curious to that child and find out what need isn't being met. And what I've found is a great way to almost, for want of a better phrase, alchemize their rebel side, all right, change it, is through play, okay? So instead of me saying, right, get up fucking stairs and get your homework done now because I've got to eat my dinner or I've got to do this, instead of doing that, it's changing it, getting down on their level and saying, right, okay then, how about you do it for, invent a character, yeah? So he might be, I don't know, have you seen Jim Carrey in where he's got the claw? What about if you do it for the claw? Yeah. And then all the children are like, yeah, it's cool. You know what I mean? So it's bringing imagination and play into, so if you won't go upstairs for me, then will you do it for the claw? And getting down on their level, being playful. And what you find is, it's a great way to transition from a child that's been a little bit resistant to a child that is compliant. Awesome. Okay. And there's so many examples of like children who won't go to bed. Oh, I don't want to go to bed. I want to stay and watch this. All right, then how about you jump aboard the slumber train? Choo choo, jump on my back and we'll run upstairs. Right, the slumber train's stopping in at the bathroom to clean your teeth. Choo choo. You're bringing in that element of play to something that you ultimately want to transition towards. Right. And then by the time you get to the bedroom, it's like, last stop, bedroom, choo choo. The child's tired, they fall asleep, they forget even about why they've been playing up.
Yeah, brilliant. I think this is a good point to mention. Your kids are 21 and 22, right?
Yeah. Jump on my back, son. Oh, my back's killing us.
No, I think it's a good point to mention your children are how old?
So I've got a 9-year-old little boy, Fran, and myself. I should probably explain a little bit about the dynamic, how it is, so people know. So myself and Fran's mum aren't together. Okay, we broke up a few years ago, but we remain in a very civil relationship and a very healthy dynamic. Because the last thing we want to do to my son is to model an unhealthy relationship with Fran's mum. So we, for the sake of our child and for the family dynamic, we model a safe, reliable relationship. Me and his mum get on. She's friends with Nell, my partner now, so that we, as a family, we feel safe. There's no like hate, jealousy, or anything like that. So together, me and Fran's mum, we co-parent. We make all decisions together. I have Fran half the week. his mum has him half the week, but we're very much in contact all the time, making all the big parenting decisions. Other than Fran, I've got a 1-year-old little girl, Athena, and she's with my partner now, who I live with, Nell. And Nell and Fran, siblings, absolutely amazing. Fran's been the nurturing big brother. It's just a lovely setup, a very modern family, as you would call it. But we just want it to be, safe space for the children. Yeah.
So for the kind of parents listening, all the stuff we'll talk about today is, to a degree, predominantly made for kids, 10 and under, 12 and under, maybe, because obviously your choo-choo train probably isn't going to work for a stroppy teenager.
Yeah,
you know
of
what
course.
So we'll keep it for children up to the age of 12, maybe. They're obviously people can decide, but what we're not talking about is stroppy teenagers. We can maybe get onto that if you feel open to, but just for the sake of streamlining it, let's keep it kind of you with your experience up to the age of 9, maybe 10, 11, that type of thing, right? So you mentioned obviously on the discipline thing around kind of, in my mind, I'd say almost gamifying it. You mentioned it was almost like making it playtime, right?
Yeah.
Turning it into a game, turning it into playtime to still get the job done makes it a little bit more kind of enjoyable for the children, really, doesn't it? Now, you also mentioned, instead of just basically smacking his ass and saying, like, get to bed, or get your clothes off, or do this or do that, right? Where does that come into the, spectrum of, I've tried to ask them what to do, that didn't work, so I tried to make it playful or gamified, that didn't work. Do you raise your voice? Do you then go down the route of, well, if he doesn't do it after 3 times, I'm going to smack his ass? Do you then install a bit of fear? Do you gamify it further? Do you add rewards? Do you take things away? Let's say he didn't still want to do the train, or didn't want to do it for the claw. What do you do after that?
I don't think there is anything wrong with expressing emotions, okay? And one of those emotions that we're all aware of is anger, okay? Now, anger expressed consciously can resonate with another person, right? Okay, we only have to look at animals, right? Okay, so Nell, my partner, she'll often say to me, like, when I tell a dog what to do, I'm just like, Coco, get out, come on, get outside.
So you've got dogs as well?
We've got dogs, yeah.
2.
We've got 2 dogs, yeah. So when Nell tells a dog what to do, she expresses it, and if it doesn't listen, it's through anger, and that anger has a resonance to it, and it lands within the dog, and the dog will listen and go outside.
Now, you're not fucking about.
Yeah, exactly. So if, Fran doesn't do what I want, and the play game doesn't work, and he's still playing up, obviously I'll still have that element of curiosity. I'm like, right, what's going on? I'll maybe have to have a chat with him later, see how his day's been. But in this moment, just simply, Fran, come on, get upstairs, right? That, me consciously displaying anger is okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because anger is a boundary setter in its the reason we evolved to have anger is to set boundaries, okay? And me, as long as I'm not getting violent and getting absolute flipping the lead, but to me harness the ability within myself to project anger through my voice can land in the child and go, right, okay, serious now, get upstairs.
Because there is an element of, if he's playing, he might not be serious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'll just try and hide from the claw, or I'll maybe jump on the first station on the train and then get off at the second station, and then before I have to get to the bedroom. You know what I mean? They could almost turn that around, and it then isn't serious, but really you're thinking, I've got shit to do. I'm tired. I've been at work all day. I want him just to do what I want to do.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I see where you're coming from, but from my experience, and there could be variances from this, from my experience, when a child's playing up, it's because they're looking for connection, okay? And through that connection of play, they're getting that need met.
Just jumping again, sorry. When you say connection, am I right in interpreting that in a way that you are saying they're either wanting seen, heard?
Yeah, they want to feel seen, connected to, connected, seen, whatever you want to call it. They want to feel as though their existence, you're present with them, they're validating their experience, yeah? And there's no better way to do that other than play. Yeah, that's what I think.
Just might sound a bit simple.
Yeah.
But is it a good idea that, let's say, for example, again, You're saying, get your school clothes off. You're saying, do this, do that. And he doesn't. Just literally sitting down and saying, why not? What's up? You know what I mean? And kind of making sure they're seen and heard and noticed and listened to and everything else by literally just sitting down and saying, why don't you want to get your school clothes off?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, get down on their level.
Why won't you do this for your dad?
Yeah, get curious, ask them. Yeah, 100%. Anything is better than the first response of get the fuck upstairs.
Which is a bit more, that's a bit more reactive, isn't it?
It
you
is,
mentioned consciously
kind
of doing the anger thing, which is like, again, a great boundary setter. They'll know, oh shit, dad's not messing around now. I better do what he says. Which it's borderline on that. There's a bit of fear involved there of if I don't do what my dad says or my mum says, there's going to be a consequence.
Yeah.
Right. So I like that. And the question I've got for you now is, how important is it that if you say, for example, and you do have to get to the point of displaying conscious anger, that you kind of follow through with what you say. So you, again, let's say you do consciously put the anger in and say, right, I'm not messing around now, enough playtime, get upstairs, take your school clothes off, get them laid out. And he still doesn't, right? At that point, how important is it that you kind of push a little further, but at the same time ensure you follow through with doing what you say you're going to do? So if, for example, you were to, right, if you don't do it now, you're going to bed an hour earlier, right? Because no doubt that, does that come in or not? Like, I'm presuming there a little bit, but does that come in?
Yeah, so you need to follow through with what you say, because if you don't, they're going to lack trust in you, and they're just going to feel as though you're a pushover. Oh, it's all right because dad's not really serious. You know what I mean? If you follow through with what you say, then they will trust your word. There's no more important thing than somebody trusting that what you say is going to happen. You know, if you're just a bit flaky and you say you're going to do something, but really they can look beneath that and be like, nah, you're not going to do that. That's giving almost like authority and the power to them. And I suppose it's not really about power, but it's ultimately about them trusting your word, because you're the parent, you're the safe structure. They're as the child, they're less mature than you are, so they need to trust your word for them to feel safe as well.
So is it then, if they're acting up and they're still not going through doing what you say, they don't feel safe? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're interpreting right? Yeah.
If they say that again, so
again, you've asked a few times, you've tried to play, you've consciously put the anger in towards them, and they're still not doing it. Is it a case of they don't feel safe because they're not listening to you? Is that what you're saying? Like, they just don't feel safe?
If every single thing that we've tried the telling them once, we've tried the play, we've tried the conscious anger, and they still aren't doing what we want them to do, then
I know it's a difficult question because there could be so many answers.
Yeah.
Let me put it this way then. At some point, are you going to have to introduce consequences?
I can't really comment because I've not needed to go there personally.
Okay. Let's rewind quickly then, just a second.
Yeah.
It's great. I think you actually never had to even look to introduce consequences, and they've kind of acted upon your request before that. But I think the majority of parents get to the point where, right, if you don't do what I'm saying, you're not playing on your PlayStation, I'm going to take your phone off you, you're going to be doing X, Y, and Z, right? I think that links back into, correct me if I'm wrong, the discipline thing of trusting your word and also getting on their level, etc. Because if a child hasn't listened up to all that point, and then it takes for the parent to introduce consequences like bed earlier or whatever, then surely that comes back to right at the very early doors of nurturing this child, not doing the nurturing in a way that they do trust the word. So using a different example here, we mentioned obviously when we were talking on our spa date about bringing a child up is similar to bringing a dog up.
Yeah.
Now, that's the only thing I can really relate to.
Yeah.
Not that I've got a dog either, but I've looked after dogs. I've also looked after my nephews and get a little bit of an idea. But if a dog, the way I look at this anyway, if a dog, you go to the vets or the dog home or whatever, and you get yourself a dog, and it comes home and it shits on the carpet.
Yeah.
If you don't drum into it early doors, shitting on the carpet is not allowed, and there's going to be a consequence if you continue doing that. Surely it's going to continue doing that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So let's say it's a new dog and you don't want to kind of be too pushy, you don't want to scare it, so you let it shit on the carpet a few times. But then it starts jumping on the sofa. Now, you don't really want it on the sofa, and you don't knock it down, you don't kind of discipline it and it's really training the dog, isn't it? That's what we're talking about, really. Training the dog is probably the best way I can put this. If you don't train the dog early doors, it's almost got free rein to do what it wants. Now, that kind of... Actually, I'll follow up from that. Let's say you don't fully discipline it in and fully train it within getting on the sofa. And sometimes you let it and sometimes you don't. Surely then, I'm going to presume the dog may think, well, if I can sometimes go on the sofa, maybe sometimes I can jump on the windowsill. So it jumps on the windowsill. But then you react. And you think, oh, fucking hell, what's he doing? That's way too much. And then you hit it and it falls over and, it's just causing chaos. How different is that, what I've just explained there, to children?
I think there's definitely crossovers in what you're saying. I think I always go back to the foundation and the root. Okay, the child won't do what you say; they will become who you are. Yeah. So if I'm putting my shoes away, the child won't do what you say; they will become who you are.
Great.
Okay, so I could shout and say, "Do this, do that," but if I'm leaving my shoes out and binging Netflix and leaving the kitchen a mess, like, I'm not modeling what I want. It's essentially about creating an environment where you really don't need to discipline. You don't need to get to that point because you are modeling an environment that the child is going to learn through osmosis. Okay, the child is just going to simply become that person because he's around an environment that's like that. So I'm putting my shoes away. Child's seeing that that's what we do. Okay, I'm brushing my teeth or whatever we do. I'm putting my clothes away. I'm cleaning my bed, getting my bed nice, and the child is seeing that.
So question then, just to jump in again, sorry. How important is it that you... Oh no, let me rephrase that. Is it unrealistic to expect a child to have behaviour that you don't?
I would say so, yeah. Yeah.
I thought so.
100%, because, why is the child going to do it if you're not doing it? You've got to, going back to the fill your own cup up first, so that you can be the person that ultimately is a better parent, is a better model for your child. 100%.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So then moving on to, you said before, there's no such thing as bad child. Now, I know for a fact this will be a bit controversial. A lot of people will say it's almost potluck, whether you get a good one or a bad one. Whether you get one that's effing and blinding by 2 or 3, or one which is very well spoken. It's potluck whether you get one which goes to bed on time or doesn't go to bed on time. It's potluck whether you get one that is well behaved and not well behaved, one that kind of is born a little shit, and one that isn't born a little shit, right? So with the phrase of there's no such thing as a bad kid, and again, kind of just in my mind, using the dog training as an example, how true is that in regards to there is no such thing as a bad kid? Because in my eyes, again, person without kids, a baby, you could line 10 babies up, right? And the environment that them 10 babies go into is going to affect probably 90% of how that baby turns out. So there's probably actually proper stats on it, which I don't know, but I'm just going to throw a number out there. It's probably 90% about environment and nurture rather than nature. Of that child is a bad one, that's a good one, that's a little shit, that's going to swear like mad at the age of 2, that one's ADHD riddled, etc., etc. So how true is the phrase, there's no such thing as a bad kid, and how much of it is nature versus nurture?
Personally, my opinion on that is that I don't think there is such a thing as a bad child. I think that all children are born pure and expressive, okay, and it's the environment that molds them into how they are. So a child that is displaying so-called bad traits, bad behaviours, is a child that has unmet needs and perhaps needs to be, understood a little bit better. We live in a world now where it's very linear in terms of, right, you fit this mold or else this and that. I personally don't think the system is designed to meet everyone. Like, we can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. You know what I mean? We live in a world where ADHD and things gets bandied about quite a lot now, and I do believe there are different structures of a brain. I believe that there are children out there that simply don't learn the way other children do. And it's simply saying, right, okay, you're just a bad child, you've got ADHD, like, type of thing. It's about getting curious. Okay, well, how do you learn then? Because I'm sure that there's these children that have got ADHD tendencies that if they found the right thing, they would be geniuses. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's just about being curious instead of writing things off, and instead of saying, right, you're a bad child. Because the child that's misunderstood, that goes off and be the criminal or whatever, if it had just found the right environment, could have ended up being an inventor of
good point. I guess, like, just on the ADHD thing, like, just taking the very one small element of that, which is like maybe more energy, right? The kid is just bouncing off the walls. A lot of parents will struggle with a child like that because they're just so energetic, go, want constant stimulation, etc., etc. Now, compared to a child which is a lot, let's say, slower, a lot less ADHD, a lot kind of less energetic. Am I right in saying then, from what you're saying, that the, let's say, ADHD tendency child, that just needs an environment that kind of helps them along in a way that suits them, compared to an environment and a nurture and a way of parenting that helps the other child, which is a lot slower?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah, I think every child needs a different understanding, a different environment. We can't just be a blanket statement and just say, right, you sit in the classroom and learn like this, when you might get a little child that's sort of daydreaming, or maybe just feels like they don't belong in that environment, and they get bandied off as ADHD or just can't concentrate, or is just a bit of a rebel or whatever. But really, when we sit down with them, we think, right, okay, well, maybe you learn through play, or maybe you learn through creative imagination, through using your hands more. And it's just about understanding that there's different strokes, and
I guess, again, just my thoughts out loud now is, it'd probably be difficult, and you maybe not know this right now because obviously Athena's only one, but let's say, because I know Fran a little, and he's a very, well, he's not ADHD by any means, whatever the other end of the scale is of that, right? Is that end. Let's say Athena is ADHD end of the scale, and she's just bouncing off the walls, and she's like energetic and constant, dad, like all that sort of stuff. How the hell would you manage that? And is it a case of explaining to Fran, look, Athena's allowed to do X, Y, and Z because of this, and maybe you're not, and vice versa? Or how would you manage that? Because I know this is maybe something you thought of, maybe not, but let's just put yourself on the spot. Athena's now ADHD through the roof. Fran's not.
Yeah.
How do you manage it in the house?
I mean, I certainly wouldn't like separate and say, right, she's allowed to do that, you're allowed to do this because she's this and you're this. I suppose it's about just creating a fluid environment where perhaps they gravitate towards what they particularly like, and sort of maybe Athena is just naturally more creative with her hands and playful. Maybe Fran's maybe more sort of logic in his brain, or just sit back and observe how the child gravitates, what seeing their traits, and just sort of tailor it into that. And it's a difficult question because I guess it's something that I've not had to navigate, but certainly just curiosity is the most important thing. Great. Be curious, don't judge, be curious.
Awesome.
Don't judge a child as good or bad. Just be curious and try and cater for their environment, and don't be structured and be like, right, this is how we do things, this is the this is the path, or this is the curriculum. It's, well, that might be the curriculum in this route, but could it be tailored?
Great.
Yeah.
We'll get on to schools in a short while. However, I want to kind of follow on there from the almost chaotic situation I just give you with one child here is through the roof, ADHD, one child's dead calm, relax, and trying to manage all that. I want to go on to how important it is for you to know your shit in emotions, in behavior, in psychology, in yourself. How important is it you know yourself How important is it that you are able to be at any end of any scale at any time you want?
Yeah.
Emotionally, psychologically, and everything else.
Yeah.
How important is that to be a good parent? Because I know for a fact, like the stuff we've been through in the very short time we've been talking, a lot of parents are just thinking, how the fuck can I do all that with everything I've got on?
Yeah.
Right. So a big question, but how important it is that really, if I was to pull it down a little bit, you know your shit about yourself, emotions, mindset, psychology, and really your own self-development. How important is that to be a good parent?
In my opinion, the most important thing that we have to do to be a good parent is to be able to regulate our own nervous system, okay? Because how can I sit with a child's emotions if I can't sit with my own, or I can't hold space? And what I mean by holding space is that I am not reactive to everything that's going on in my environment. I'm able to sit back and observe and find the spaciousness between myself. And what I mean is the spaciousness within myself, I should say, is no matter what's going on in our environment, there's chaos, there's traffic, there's whatever's going on, there is always a part within ourselves that can feel peace, okay? And that's just almost an awareness, okay? It's like an awareness that you aren't your thoughts, you are the witness to those thoughts, okay? And if you get bogged down in the chaos, in the crying child, or in this and that, you'll get too involved and you'll get reactive to it. And that's when your past conditioning is snappy and reactive and this and that. But if you can pause, and as Viktor Frankl says, one of the most important quotes ever made is, between stimulus and response, there is a gap. Within that gap lies your greatest power. So, touching back to...
Say that one more time, sorry.
So, between stimulus and response, there is a gap. Within that gap lies your greatest power. Because it's within that gap that you can change, okay? If you don't pause, and between stimulus and response, it's just reactive, then you're just living on autopilot through your past condition, and you're just reactive and snappy and snappy. And then 9 times out of 10, you say things that you regret. You're like, oh, God's sake, I wish I hadn't reacted in anger like that. But so that's why, swinging back to your question, opening up this one, is it's so important to regulate your own nervous system as an adult. Because if I can calm myself in among the height of the chaos, then that gives me a grounded strength to be able to be capable of handling life. So we said it before the podcast started, but we said that, what does regulating your nervous system look like?
I've literally just made a note there.
Yeah.
You talk about regulating central nervous system. When someone's in that reactive state, what's that saying about their own central nervous system? They're in a flight.
Well, they're in a fight or flight response, yeah. They're in survival, they're in hypervigilant, they're in sort of, well, survival, fight or flight.
And
reactive.
that's, hang on, let's get it right. That is sympathetic?
Sympathetic nervous system, yeah. So
I always get them too mixed up, parasympathetic and sympathetic.
I think of para as in like paralyzed, like it's like, you know, down and still. So, yeah, we're triggered. The environment's triggered us. We're in a state of reactive, which we need, by the way, but we're not always in our most logical brain when we're in a triggered state. We can often say things that we regret. We're highly responsive. So it's important as a parent to create practices within our day where we are soothing ourselves, okay? So prime example would be this, right? I've got up in the morning, getting myself ready, getting Fran ready for school, you know, bits and chaos and that going on. Drop him off at school. I've maybe been stuck behind a tractor, getting triggered by the traffic. It's been a bit of a chaotic morning, yeah? Then I'm parked outside the car park, in the car park at work, just about to go in the office. If I walk in that office with that anxious energy that I've just had all morning, then 9 times out of 10, I'm probably going to get into an argument with my first customer. I'm going to get triggered by somebody because I'm carrying that anxious energy into the office. So it's important, my belief anyway, is that it's important to regulate yourself within these little chapters of our day. So I might simply be like, right, okay, sat in the car park, just about to go in the office, I'm going to soothe myself. So that can simply look like soothe myself. All right.
I try not to make it obvious there.
I'm going to soothe myself, right? So
I'm just going to sit in my car and soothe myself for 10 minutes.
Yeah, no. So some of these terms are a bit daft and that, but you know what I'm saying. I'm going to regulate myself. So that
check in with yourself and just
check
have a
in
minute.
with yourself. Have a minute. And for me, it looks like anytime that you prolong your exhale breath, okay, you're bringing yourself back down into a calm and relaxed state, parasympathetic. So could simply look like this: 4 seconds in, and then 8 seconds out. I've just literally done one of them now, and I already feel more grounded and relaxed. If you do 3 or 4 of them in the car park before you go in the office, you're going to walk into the office a different person. 100%. Same again, dinner time comes, you do the similar crack. You finish the work, you're going to walk in your house after the day at work. What type of person do you want to be to greet your family with? Do you want to be the type of person that's had a stressful day at work and brings that stress home with you? Or do you want to be calm and relaxed?
How important is it as well? I seem to start every question today with how important, but it is all important. Is little other things outside what you're saying there. So, like, all this stuff we're talking about, in my eyes, makes no difference if, for example, your notifications are constantly going on your phone. You're listening to the news on the way to work, and you're sitting there doing your breath work while the radio's talking about fucking murder, war, the shit show of the UK, and everything else. Like, how important is all these other, I guess, like I made a note there to ask about the contributors to this heightened state of sympathetic. I know we're kind of talking about the things to soothe it, but outside of the soothing, is there any other things outside of maybe what I just mentioned there you could potentially look at to make the soothing more effective?
Yeah, 100%. So you can't out willpower a bad environment, okay? Like, you could have a monk, right? Absolute chilled Zen monk who lives with smackheads. Eventually they text smack. Right? You can't out willpower a bad environment. So you've got to create the environment that is conducive to a calm state. So, perfect thing, like, what does your house look like? Is your house a mess? Because if your house is a mess, you're going to have a messy mind. If you get up in the morning and you see a load of clothes scattered over your room, you're immediately going to wake up with a disgruntled disposition. Whereas if you've already made decisions, so it's about another good quote that I like: you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your systems. Okay, if you've got things in place, decisions already made, like, for example, the night before, I've got my bait already on the counter to pick up. That's less decisions that I need to make when my kid's getting ready for school. So, 100%, mate, you are right. Create the environment that's going to be conducive to a regulated nervous system.
One of the things I always teach my clients is all about presence. And I think this is a good point to mention how important presence is here, because, again, that phrase you mentioned before about stimulus, response, gap, that there's presence, isn't it? You've got presence to be able to choose how you act thereafter rather than just reacting. Presence with being in the car, if you're going to do breath work, if you're going to just literally sit for 5 minutes, like, then not being also a secondary thing, removing distractions, like, again, phone notifications. Something straight away I tell all my clients when they join my coaching is get all your notifications turned off. Get them off. Your phone needs to be a blank phone. If you've got important, very important texts from school, all right, keep them on. Phone calls, all right, keep them on. The likelihood of getting an important WhatsApp is almost non-existent. The likelihood of getting an important Instagram message, non-existent. Snapchat, fuck it off. Get them gone, because then at least you've got some form of control over your fucking own thoughts rather than being taken from you and manipulated by an external fucking screen, right? So that's one thing I think is very important to introduce here. Secondly, you mentioned decisions. And I think it's a good point to mention here that we all have a certain amount of decisions. We can actually build this into the capacity thing we're talking about. So I always think back to when an old mentor of mine taught me, the likes of Zuckerberg and all these big CEOs, they all wear the pretty much same clothes every day. White t-shirt, pair of jeans, black t-shirt, pair of jeans, white t-shirt, pair of jeans, so on and so forth. So they don't even have to have the brain energy spent on, does that top go with them jeans? What should I wear today? They just have the same clothes. So all their decisions, or all their energy, because it takes energy to make decisions, goes into productive stuff. Now, this is presumably the same with parenting, right? And again, it's a thing that I try and help my clients with a lot. But I often see the parent side of things draining it. So I can do everything I can possibly do with my clients to give them as much energy as possible, to get efficient with their planning, to give them as much brain space and decision making capabilities as possible. But if their parenting side of things is draining them, it's like there's a hole in the bucket there I can't plug. I'm hoping this is going to do it today. So, again, just want to mention that we all have a certain amount of decisions, and once them decisions have gone, let's just put a number in. We've all got 1,000 decisions we can make per day. Now, these are micro decisions from, am I going to listen right now, or am I going to take a drink of water? These are bigger decisions like, should I walk to work or get the bus to work or drive to work? Even bigger decisions like, should I fuck my bird off because she's doing me head in? Or should I ask her to marry us? And the bigger the decision, the more energy it'll take, right? So on a daily level as a parent, I think it's important now to mention that we all want to be aware that you've only got so many decisions to make. And then after that, we're pretty much relying on subconscious mind. Is that correct? Do you agree or not agree, or what?
Yeah, so two things I'd like to add to that. So basically, it's the Mark Manson piece where we wake up each morning with a number of fucks to give, basically. It's decision fatigue, if you like. So, you wake up in the morning, you start scrolling on your phone, a little bit of your willpower like dwindles away. You wake up in the morning, you sort of resent and get stuck behind a tractor, whatever, a little bit. So we wake up with these decisions to make. So the more we have decisions in place that are made the previous day, or like, as we've said, structures. So we've already got our clothes out, we know what we're going to wear. That's not a decision that's going to eat into today's level of fucks. If that makes sense. So yeah, structure, designing your life so that you can have more capacity. But also as well, what I would say is every time you make a self-empowering decision, okay, so it's a decision that you've said, right, okay, I've chosen this, okay, and that's going to be a better decision, okay, we almost like create more space because we've got more evidence. So it's like, right, okay, I've made a good decision there that my previous self wouldn't have made, okay. So that gives you like almost like a little boost. It almost like creates more space, if that makes sense. And I think that's important too. So it's like knowing that we've got willpower, but also knowing that each time you make a decision that is self-empowering, it almost gives you more capacity.
Brilliant. I think I've just made a note there. I think we should touch on productiveness, energy management, just briefly at the end, just to kind of give people a quick insight how, well, I really think I live my life very, very efficiently. I'm always trying to tweak the micro, tiny things in my day to give us that extra bit of energy, decision-making skills, so I can put it into things that benefit us and take us forward.
Yeah.
We'll touch on it later. But we kind of went on a few different tangents here. We were at the point of contributors to people being in a sympathetic, like reactive state, which I think where most parents just live. And then also things we can do to kind of offset that. So you mentioned breath work, having a second. Is there any others you can think of which can help if someone realizes, you know what, I'm just a bit like on edge, I'm in fight or flight, I'm just reacting, I'm not thinking, what else can they do?
So two things that massively helped me, going back to my roots years ago now, I always thought, cold water exposure, right? So I would go and get in a lake, and the lake is the external chaos, right? You're stepping in a lake, your body feels in a state of fear, put yourself in fight or flight. If you can regulate yourself in a cold lake, then that's actually a powerful blueprint for regulating yourself when you're arguing with your spouse, or when you're at your mum's house, or when a child's playing up. So cold water exposure for me has been a massive lesson for me to control my nervous system in a stressful situation. So yeah, that's a wonderful technique. So could be a cold shower, could be jumping in a lake, and thinking to yourself, right, okay, I'm aware that my heart's beating fast. Okay, I'm aware that I'm in an environment that I don't want to be in. Okay, so having that awareness, and then being like, okay, I'm going to breathe slowly. I'm going to prolong my exhale breath, and I'm going to bring myself to a state of peace when I'm in this situation that I see as externally chaotic. If you can do that, that is an amazing practice to do. Bringing it into more daily life, cold water exposure, amazing, but having an awareness of where you get triggered, okay? We all get triggered from daily life. For me, it might be stuck behind a tractor, might be going round to my mum's house, might be X, Y, or Z, right? If we have awareness of our triggers, and we've almost got a sense of, right, okay, I can start from that point. So previous Dave might have got stuck behind the tractor on the way to work and been like, oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, previous Dave might have done that. Simply having the awareness that I get angry when I'm behind the tractor, I could be like, right, okay, I'm feeling a bit of energy coming up here. Letting that energy pass through you. Because any energy that comes up, any emotion, only lasts 90 seconds in the body. And everything you tell your story about afterwards is just your own perspective on it. So if you're angry about getting stuck behind traffic at work while you're in the office, it's you that needs to change. It's the energy's passed through you, and your perspective needs to change. You know what I mean? It's like, so look at your triggers, practice soothing yourself, and then over time, those triggers will have less of an effect on you.
I think it'd be a good point to mention now as well. Triggering and being triggered is a great way to learn more about yourself, right? Isn't it?
100%.
So, for example, using that that scenario there of being stuck behind a tractor and you raging, it could be a case of, okay, and I think the best way I would suggest doing this, because this doesn't have to just be in a parenting situation, it's asking yourself, what does this tell me about myself? So if you were triggered that this tractor has got in your way and now you're late because of this guy who's driving at 10 mile an hour, it's potentially shown within you inability to be patient. It's potentially shown you that you need to be more organised and set off 10 minutes earlier and factor in there might be a tractor. It might be showing you that you shouldn't be necessarily staying up on Netflix up till midnight and then getting up last minute, rushing around, and highlighting the lack of organisation or connection to time or whatever it might be. And really looking within anytime you get triggered to say and ask yourself, what does this show me about myself? What does this tell me about myself?
100%. Like, there's not a better piece of self-awareness advice than that. Look at your triggers as getting curious to them, because there's no better way than looking at your triggers and thinking, why am I getting triggered by this? And pointing it back at yourself and getting curious. You know, am I getting triggered by being, you know, a tractor or whatever?
Let's use a children's example. Since we're obviously talking about parenting.
Okay.
So again, Franz came home from school. You've asked him to take his school clothes off, put them away, do X, Y, and Z, and he's not. Now you feel yourself getting angry. What is he telling you about yourself?
So if I feel myself getting angry with somebody not doing what I want them to do, it's that I'm not comfortable when I don't have control. Okay. So there's an element of, can I be okay when I don't have control? Okay. Because we essentially, our personality is who I needed to be to feel safe growing up. Okay. So we look at our emotions: anger, sadness, fear, or joy. Okay. If I grew up as a little baby, okay, trying to connect to my caregiver, and I sense that it's not okay for me to express my anger, okay, then as an adult, I'll do everything in my power so that I don't have to feel anger. Okay. Because I've learned growing up, it's not safe to feel anger, so we close it off and put it in a box. And I become the perfectionist or the control freak, okay, as an adult, because I'm essentially doing everything I can because I don't want to feel anger. It's not safe. So it's about, okay, I get triggered when I don't have control. Okay, what emotion am I trying to avoid? Because simply, like, me in my self-actualized higher self, who I'm aspiring to be, and I'm not, by no means at, like, would like to get to a state where I don't get triggered by my son. Do you know what I mean? Because I want to remain rational. I want to be like, right, okay, I can witness my son playing up. Like, I don't want to get triggered by that. I want to just sit back and witness it from a rational place through presence. I don't want to get swept away with it and get triggered, and you know what I mean? So yeah, it's self-inquiry. It's just understanding most of the things that we get triggered by. It's because at the other end of the trigger, there is an emotion that I've learned not to feel. Okay?
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. We've briefly mentioned capacity.
Yeah.
So, as a parent, or as people in general, we all have different capacities.
Yeah.
Capacities to deal with almost anything. Like for me personally, my capacity to deal with people who don't act upon what they say is like this.
Yeah.
Fucking time waster, get gone.
Yeah.
Can't be asked. You're not wasting my time. My capacity to deal with someone who is willing to try whatever they want to get to where they want to be. And even if they fail a million times, my capacity is just endless. I will always help them.
Yeah.
My capacity, if I was a parent, I've always said this. If I had a kid, they'd get told twice. The third time there'd be a consequence. And I would stick to that. And again, it's easy for me to say because I've not got kids. But I'd stick to that through and through.
Yeah.
Because I wanted them to know that you get told once, take your shoes off before you, I don't know, go upstairs. You get told twice, and the third time there's going to be a serious consequence, and I'd follow it through.
Yeah.
So they know the boundaries straight away of, oh, I'm on my second trance. You know what I mean? Third one, I'm not getting me fucking Game Boy for 2 weeks, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So my capacity for repeating myself with a child like that in that situation, which I know would drain the fuck out my energy because I have to repeat myself over and over, would be quite small. Right. So, talking about capacity, we've all got different capacities in different things. And as parents, we've got a capacity to kind of deal with children as well. How can we increase the capacity? And how do we become aware of it? And for someone listening who's thinking like, what the fuck are they talking about capacity? What is it? And how can they use it to their advantage? How can they increase it? Because really, the more the better, right?
Yeah, of course. So I'll give you an example with me and my little baby girl. So if I was to have low capacity, imagine I'm putting my baby daughter to sleep, and she's crying. She doesn't want to go to sleep. She's playing up. And that is a situation that is chaotic. She's crying her eyes out. She doesn't want to go to sleep, and I want her to go to sleep. Okay. If I got angry with that, and I lost my cool in that situation, and got triggered and just couldn't deal with it, and just ran downstairs and says, "Right, Nell, go on, your turn. You go and take over that." Then I haven't got capacity to deal with that situation. Like I can't remain calm and composed in that situation. Okay. Now, if I can witness that situation where my baby isn't getting to sleep, she's crying, but then sit back and think, there's a part of me that's still peaceful. Okay. There's a part of me that can witness this and be calm still through regulating my breath. As I say, down regulating through the prolonged exhale breath. I can actually see that as like, oh, so now I'm with my daughter and she's crying. Like this was just a different version of me getting in a cold lake and calming myself. So I can now get to a situation where my daughter's crying, but I'm peaceful inside, and I can be like, I can sit here all night. Like I can sit here quite comfortably all night, and I don't have to run downstairs and be like, I'm done. So if I can build a capacity within me, almost a big space within me that the chaos can sit within, then that is a great grounded sense of strength to achieve. But also, branching off from that, we co-regulate as humans, So if my nervous system is calm, my daughter will also feed off that, If my daughter's playing up and she's crying her eyes out and I'm feeling anxious and overwhelmed and scatty, she'll pick up on that and it will exacerbate the situation. But if I can calm in among that chaos, she will sense through my nervous system, through the co-regulation, calmness, okay? We've seen these examples between me and Nell. Obviously, nothing away from Nell. Nell's an amazing mother, which hopefully we'll get onto various parts of that. But when Nell was a first-time mum with Athena, she was naturally a little bit anxious, So when she would try and put baby to sleep or whatever, it wouldn't happen. Because I'm a little bit older, I've obviously I've been a parent before, I could regulate myself, bring myself down to so Athena would relax with me, And it was just purely because my nervous system was calm and Athena fed off that. And now Nell is obviously amazing. She's regulated her nervous system and she's much more calm, just through experience, but 100%,
Class. So a question then, is your child a mirror of you?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, yeah. Through my experience, I can only comment on that because my children are. And if I had to tap into my intuition and belief, I believe that they are a mirror of yourself. Yeah,
I'd say so on
yeah.
quite a few levels.
It's essentially what I'm seeing play out with my two children is a reflection of my nervous system. That is essentially what I'm seeing play out.
Because realistically, looking at, for example, your, let's say, inability to regulate your emotions,
Yeah.
likelihood of the children's emotions being regulated are quite slim.
Yeah.
Let's say a different example of your ability to have discipline and be disciplined. The likelihood of the child or children being disciplined is unlikely.
Yeah.
Another example of just, I don't know, doing what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Likelihood of a child, if you don't have that, likelihood of a child always doing what they say they're going to do is likely not happening.
Yeah.
So I see it clear as day, the children just being a mirror of the parent.
Yeah.
And we could throw so many variables in there of, well, what if it's different parents styles or separated parents and all this? But generally, really, I think every parent should take, if there's two parents, both take what, 50% responsibility?
Yeah, 50% responsibility, but also
whether they're together or not.
Together or not, but also like to understand that sometimes Nell might say to me, "Hey, listen, I'm running on 30% today. Can you step up and do the 70?"
Real.
Or maybe I've had an awful day, bad news or whatever, and I'm like, "Listen, I haven't got capacity today. Can you step up?" And so it's about the relationship itself has always got 100%, and it's about navigating that space.
Just a thought there, like let's say, for example, you've got a child which has got two parents, and they're being influenced by two people, but then you've got another child which has got like four parents, so the mum and dad separated, and there's a mum and dad there, and the mum, stepdad, dad, stepmum, whatever. They're then being influenced by four people.
Yeah.
Would you say that a child which has got more parents will be more dysregulated? Let me rephrase that. Will be, well, yeah, let's maybe to a degree dysregulated compared to a child that is being only influenced by two parents, for example, because that's surely going to have an effect. Like if you put yourself in a child's shoes, well, I've got four parents, four different people to kind of feed off, to be nurtured by in all different ways. And if you think, take four parents, four adults that are nurturing one child, each individual parent is going to have their own triggers, capacities, ways of parenting, like their own trauma that often gets passed on to the children. Like surely that child is going to be more, I don't know if I just keep going back to dysregulated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. And I think that's why it's so important. The more parental role models a child has got, it's important to sort of have that as a network. This is the parental network, if you like. There's four adults here, right? You're the mum and the dad, mum, stepdad, or whatever you've got, right? Almost get together and create an environment where it's like, right, between us four, we're raising this child. What are our values? What are we prioritizing? Because I don't want him coming to my house and doing this and then going to your house and getting complete opposite. So I think that's so it's so important to put our egos aside and be like, right, okay, that might be my ex, but this is a co-parent, and that might be your ex, but ultimately what matters most is the child. So what network are we creating? What values are we promoting as a parent? Are we doing gentle parenting? Are we doing discipline? So it's fluid and it's consistent. But don't get me wrong, that's an ideal world. I've managed to do that with my setup just because I've managed to speak to Fran's mum and say, look, Fran's the most important thing. We want a healthy dynamic. But I know there's obviously situations where it's like, well, that's your ex, you can do one and all. I know that goes on.
Sometimes you just can't talk to fucking idiots.
Yeah, you can't. So I think what it's about is it's about understanding that the child is always going to get different influences. But that's not necessarily always bad because, I remember I went to a school that was like rough around the edges. I got to see people smoking around the back of the thing, taking drugs. Wasn't necessarily the best environment to be growing up in, but it almost like I've seen the world. I've seen what happens in the world, and I still had that structure from my mum and my dad to make my own decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
So it's about diluting it.
I just realised after I kind of put that to you that my perspective there was a child being dysregulated, and realistically, if all four parents and adults were parenting in harmony and open communication, realistically, the child could end up being a better version than a more regulated, let's say, just the opposite, a more regulated version compared to a child with only two parents, because then they've got four people to learn off.
100%.
You know what I mean? So I just realised, kind of after I said that, my perspective there was, dysregulation, where it could be actually more regulated and more advanced and more mature and well behaved and all the rest of it. Happier and whatever it might be. So,
well, in that book that I've been reading, it does say it takes a village to raise a kid. You know, it does take. And back in the day when we were in tribes, you would have like your elders and the people you went to for this advice and vice versa. Like, you know, I often go back to my childhood, and a lot of my influences as a child, I had my mum and dad, of course I did, but I would say that I had other parents. Like, my karate teacher was a great parent. My karate teacher, I look back and I think a lot of my morals and principles and values are from karate. So
I've obviously been thinking and talking about getting a full leg sleeve tattoo with all my childhood role models on. So I think it'd be a good time now to mention how important role models are, and ask you what's your thoughts on children A, having role models, and B, not having role models. Because I really believe the world we live in now, there's hardly any role models, hardly any whatsoever. And I'm not surprised kids are taking drugs earlier, smoking earlier, drinking earlier, and just being little shits earlier, because they don't have nothing to aspire to. Then the third question, how important it is as a parent that you are the fucking role model.
100%. Role models are really of high importance. Again, going back to that structure, to that path, to that, you know, looking for inspiration, looking for guidance. I think we need role models more than ever. And, you know, it was only when I got into my late 20s when I started looking for inspirational role models like Jordan Peterson. You know, what should a man do in this world? What is healthy masculinity? What is femininity? And I've got that feminine side within myself. My partner Nell's got a masculine side within herself. So it's important to understand and have these guidelines, archetypes, if you like, so that we can be less confused. Do you know what I mean? Because I think there's a lot of confusion growing up. I was confused as a kid. You know, I didn't know what a man should be, what a man should do. You know, and I went down a certain path, and then I felt disconnected from that because I thought, well, there's a whole other side of me I'm not exploring, the feminine side. So role models are of vital importance, 100%.
Definitely. I made a note not too long ago when you were talking about just generally being okay with what is, but still committed to progress. A lot, I think, what we've talked about here with managing this and regulating this and fucking speaking to the ex and managing that and taking different approaches and looking within, it's fucking heavy. It's a lot of shit.
It is.
You know what I mean? It's a lot. Half the parents have already turned off thinking, I just want to fucking get through my day, never mind take on all this, right? So I think a message I'd like to kind of sum everything up to this point is just be okay with how things are in the moment, but still be committed to progress. So if your child at the moment is a little shit, all right, just be all right with having them as a little shit right now. Be okay with it. It is what it is, but still committed to progress, meaning being less a little bit of a shit, right? Or whatever the example may be. Is that a fair summary up to now?
Yeah, it's a fair summary to be okay with what is. Get curious to it. Don't judge it as good or bad. Just be a little bit curious to it and just soften to it, you know. Just get rid of this idea of right and wrong, basically, and just be, as I say, curiosity is the overwhelming word that I keep coming back to. And through curiosity, we can be gentle, you know, and less judgmental, less assuming. Curiosity isn't the clenched fist, it's the open hand. And that's how, you know, it's a good way to be.
Just touching on capacity then, again, briefly. Would you say that a child will be brought up better, nurtured better, and become a better person I know that's quite a shit phrase, but you know what I mean when I say that. When the parent has more capacity.
100%, yeah.
So, capacity, we've mentioned how a parent can kind of increase their capacity. I'd like to specifically mention energy and how that plays a part within capacity, because again, I don't know many parents at all that have in what they would say enough energy.
Yeah.
They're just exhausted all the time. Now, this is where I see the lack of self-development within the parent contributes to them being it's not a worse parent, it's a lack of being able to manage the child. So then it then drains them even more. Does that make sense? But then, so it's a revolving like cycle. You know what I mean? Because they haven't done the self-development, because they haven't like they don't have a clue to a degree a lot of this stuff we're talking about. They then parenting is more difficult for them. That's probably the best way I can say it. But because parent is more difficult for them, they've got no energy. So then I'm very aware that with no energy, you can't really do much at all. Going back to the capacity, going back to the decisions, the productiveness, the efficiency of how you have your day, how clean your environment is, how clean your mind is, all this sort of stuff is going to drain your energy. It's going to reduce your conscious decision-making skills and then enable you to revert or to your subconscious mind, which is more reactive and more of your kind of trauma upbringing programming and upbringing type of thing, where it's then you're not your best self. So, question then, how important is energy within capacity, which then leads on to being a better parent?
Yeah. So two things jump out when we talk about energy. The first one is the obvious one, right? Okay, so we need to create space and structure to have our own time. Yeah. So I'm going to be a better dad if I go away in the fells.
Brilliant.
Like, so if I've planned in my calendar, or next Sunday, me and Kieran are going to go out in the fells for some, for a lad's day in the fells. I'm going to go back as a better partner and a better dad because I've allowed some time for myself. Okay. So having time in my calendar for that, but also to feed your relationship as well. Like me and Nell, like when we just had a kid, inevitably the relationship takes a bit of a backseat, especially intimacy and sex life or whatnot. So that spark won't come back unless we feed it. Yeah. So to be conscious about that and say, right, okay, let's do our best. We'll put some intimacy time in the calendar. That sounds daft, but it works because you're creating that structure around it. And then it might change. Of course it might do because life happens. But we know that as soon as baby's asleep, we're going to have that good hour where she's settled or whatever. We can create a bit of space for intimacy. That doesn't have to be having sex. It can just be put a few candles on, change the vibe of the room, do a bit of breathing together, massage, just creating that intimacy where you feel seen with each other. And that is, it's so important for creating energy so that you can handle life better. Okay, so yeah, first thing to root off with that. Second one is purpose. Okay, so from my point of view, stop trying to see parenting as something to handle, something to navigate, but see it as something as we are the generation of the fucking chain breakers, right? Post-war generation, my fucking granddad, just stiff up a lip, keep calm, carry on. From that generation, our parents, you don't feel your emotions, you don't be angry. This generation is the first conscious generation that turns back and faces the flames, yeah? Where we start to be conscious and think, right, all right, I don't want my son to be grown up a people pleaser or my daughter to be attached to success or fame. I want them to be conscious, feel all of their emotions and fucking live with their life force. Like, to me, I fucking jump out of bed for that shit. Like, I'm not getting drained by parenting. I'm getting fucking excited by it. And, I think when you've got a deep-rooted purpose, as fucking Jordan Peterson says, you'll crawl through glass on your hands and knees to get it done.
Class. Love that.
Yeah.
Smiling there because I've never viewed this generation as the chain breakers, which you put it magnificently there. And I was smiling thinking, it's so right. Yeah, look at the fucking state of the world. However, that's a different tangent. We'll see it for another day. Now, you mentioned something there which I thought, you know what? Oh, it was about going off with the lads in the fells and all this, right? And you need your time to yourself.
Yeah.
Arguing on the behalf of almost 99% of women or mums out there, mum guilt. Dad guilt as well, but predominantly mum guilt.
Yeah.
I don't want to go and have a night off with the lassies.
Yeah.
Because I feel guilty if I leave my child. I feel like I'm neglecting them. What do you say?
Well, you need to fill your cup up first. Yeah. There's a reason that you put your own gas mask on first on a plane. Yeah. Because if you haven't got bigger capacity, if your needs aren't met first, you're not going to be able to meet your daughter's need, your child's need. Yeah. So it's about being selfish so that you can be kinder to other people. You know, have you seen that big circle? There's a circle of like where our kindness is normally better to people further away. So a complete stranger will be really kind to them. To our friends, we'll be less kind. We're more likely to say things that's less kind. To our family, often we speak fucking shit to, take their love for granted. But then to our fucking selves, we speak really shit to. So we're obviously less kinder the closer we are to ourselves.
Wow.
We'd be kinder to a fucking stranger than we would be out to ourselves. But if we can be kinder to ourselves, that circle's going to keep on increasing to the others.
Love that.
You know, so...
Love that. That's belter.
Yeah.
Class. So, where's the line then? You mentioned mums and dads, but predominantly mums.
Yeah.
You've got to put yourself first because you've got to fill your cup first, right?
Yeah.
Just again, playing devil's advocate on behalf of the mums, they're going to say, well, my child comes first. Their needs are first. I'll basically do everything for them. What do you say to that? Where's that going to end them up? Where are they going to end up?
Okay, so how about that saying that is so powerful? I would die for my child. Okay, but would you live for them? Yeah, would you live for them? Okay, it's not about sacrificing everything and you living a life that they're seeing. You're a model for your child. The best model that you can be is a vibrant, healthy, regulated person. Okay, if your child is going to be getting their needs met, but you're going to be fucking poverty, like, it's not a good model to see. And I can understand a lot of people are just being selfless and they think, oh, but my child comes first. I'll do anything for my child. But the best thing you can do for your child is to live for them. Be healthy, get your needs met, look after yourself, because then you'll be a better version for them.
Great. I think it's worth now expanding on this topic here, and just to say that everyone has their own line of how much they do for themselves and how much they do for children. So you may only need a weekend on the fells or a day on the fells once every 6 months. And that sees you through. You can turn up at 100% because you had that 6-monthly refreshment. I know for me, I'd probably need it every few days.
Yeah.
I'd need to be spa day Monday, like some silence time on a Thursday, and a Saturday night off. Like, that would, for me, would be, okay, great. I've got mini places throughout the week that I can recharge, replenish, and then sure, I've turned up 100%. So everyone's going to have their own limit of what's what there, right? How can people find that? Like, so let's say this is new to someone listening, because I know this for a fact will be resonating with a lot of, again, predominantly mums, and they'll be thinking, yeah, I do need to do a lot for myself. So I see it with the mums I work with. And I pretty much put it to them. If you go and have some time to yourself and fill your cup up, do you come back a better mum or a worse mum? Better mum. Okay, go and do that. And then really try and get them to realise when they need their cup filled up again to go and do something else again. And if they really adopt that and think, all right, I can go and fill my own cup up, whether it be a fell walk or a spa day or whatever it might be, a night out with the lassies, if they can then realise, when I do that, I come back a better mum, then it's only really a good thing that they go and do that more often or whenever they need. And then they can get rid of the guilt of, I feel like I'm neglecting my children. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's only experience. You know, as you say, you can tell somebody something, but unless they've tried it, they're not going to get that awareness. You know, it's a difference between knowledge and awareness. Me telling somebody that this is the best thing you can do to be a better mum is knowledge, but them experiencing it and going back as a better mum is awareness.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So them going back with the awareness, I'll tell you something, Dave said to go up a fell walk and that, and I've tried it, and I've went back and I've just a lot more capacity. That's them having that experience and awareness that they can use. And again, as you say, it's just about having these little self-inquiries where we like monitor ourselves through the day. So it might be you get home and you think, fucking hell, I'm feeling a bit snappy tonight, feel a bit angry, feel a bit like, that's like,
short capacity.
Short capacity, aye. Then you're like, oh God, I think I need to get out for a fell walk or something. So it's just having these little check-ins with ourselves. What's my emotions like? What's my reactivity like? Because I guarantee you, once I've been up the fells, I can come back and I can sit with chaos all night. Like when I say chaos, I don't mean, I mean, I can handle what's going on. But also as well, second part of that, which is something that me and Nell are getting the benefits from now, create an environment or a family that you don't need to escape from.
Love it.
So, for example, with me and Fran now and Athena, it's almost like having our mate. Like, me and Nell, of a night, we do our art. Nell's always painting. I'm always writing poems. We're always looking through our foraging books or whatever, or planning fell walks or whatever. Fran goes on his computer, of course he does. That's fine. But he's seeing an environment downstairs that he wants to be part of. So he's looking at Nell's art and he's like, hey, I want to try and draw the Greek. I want to try and draw some Greek mythology as well. Or he's asking Nell about how you draw this face or how you draw that. And it's almost like just having a little mate there. Do you know what I mean?
Class.
So I don't need, it's not like I'm thinking, oh, bloody hell, I've had to make all these parenting decisions. I need to go out in the fells. Because now, Fran wants to come out in the fells with us. Because it's like, I remember there was a pivot, like a changing point where Fran was starting to play on computers and he was becoming a little bit resistant to going out in the fells. He was like, oh, daddy, I want to play on PlayStation. I don't want to go on the fells. And I thought, right, okay, what can I do to compete with the allure of computers? So we got a little foraging book. All right. We got a little foraging book and we started looking for things that we could find on our walks. So now, Fran's got that element of excitement with our walks. He's like, oh, right, daddy, have you found that mushroom? Or daddy, look at that. And it gives us an element of fun within our walk. So it's literally like going on a walk with your mate. Awesome. Like you don't feel like you're on this walk and you're looking after a kid. Do you know what I mean?
What you said there about having children and not needing the escape and stuff like that. I've this year recently changed my life around that. I want my day-to-day life so enjoyable that I don't need a holiday to escape from it. Right? And it's a similar kind of thing you mentioned there, which I love. I really, really do love it. Which again kind of comes back to how good you can parent and discipline and how easy you can. When I say parent, it's such an overarching term for everything we've talked about underneath it, isn't it? And I'm seeing so many different connections here with your self-development to having more capacity, to then looking after yourself on a physical level, an emotional level, mental level, to then have more energy, but then having the presence there to be able to stop at that gap between stimulus and response, to be able to self-regulate, to be able to go and look after yourself when you need to then parent better, which then makes parenting easier. And there's so many different connections here.
Yeah.
So many. It's all really deeply intertwined. You know what I mean? Like you were talking about the fun there.
Yeah.
Like, again, this is one of the things I'm telling clients all the fucking time. Have more fun. Yeah. Because if you look at a child, all they want to do is have fun. They want to play. They want to jump off the sofa onto the fucking lampshade. They want to jump off that onto the chair, and they're so playful.
Yeah.
Us as adults with bills and responsibilities and social media and comparison and Karens and judgments and X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
The fun gets fucking sucked out of us. You know what I mean? So implementing fun and time out for yourself, I personally think is the, let's say, two things actually. Fun and self-development, both together, are two things that are the most important things to have everything else flow well. Because without those two things, you've got a big uphill battle. Uphill battle.
Yeah, 100%. As you say, fun and self-development, because your self-development, you've obviously got like a North Star, your purpose, direction, keep you up going. And then the fun, the playfulness, the actual juice of life. Like, what is life if you're super successful but you're not having a fun time? Like, it's not about the end product. It's about what it's like doing it. It's about the journey, the old cliche. And I think that's why it's so important, getting back to the start and the structure. If you make hard decisions today, you will have an easy life tomorrow. If you make easy decisions today, you'll have a harder life tomorrow. So a lot of the life that I've cultivated with Nell and our family dynamic now, it's because we made those hard decisions early on, so that now we're just reaping the rewards from it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
hard decisions being, for example, leading us on to a great new topic, not just saying, oh, just get on your fucking iPad.
Yeah.
Just play on your games. Just shut up and go on your phone. Not that most parents will say that, but it's a lot of just give them the iPad, shut them up for a bit.
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
That's so common in 2024. Now, I see a hell of a lot of detriments to that. But again, there's no point in me saying to someone, don't be giving your fucking iPad to your child too much. They're going to say, fuck off, you don't know what it's like to have kids.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, iPad, phones, technology, and just giving the child that whenever they want it, whenever you want them to shut up, whenever you want them to calm down, whenever you want them to stop kicking off, etc., etc. What's the, let's say, pros and cons?
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm not a perfect parent. I've done that as well. We've all done that, took the easy way out. But it's about understanding it's the frequency that you do it. You know what I mean? It's like your fitness journey. We all have a bloody binge takeaway now and again, but it's how many times you're doing that. And it's about understanding that if you're taking the easy way out all the time, that isn't ideal, mate, because it's going to have hardship later on. So it's about understanding that, yeah, of course, the child can play on the technology, but it's about having structure around it. Okay, and it's not about having it all the time. So we live in a world where technology is abundant. We live in probably the most technological age. Computers, games, VR goggles, whatever you name it, technology is not going to go away. So I don't think it's about sort of saying, oh, it's all right when you used to be cops and robbers and building dens out in the forests and that. I don't think we're going to go back to those times. But it's about having a balance. Okay, so I'm not completely adverse to like computers and technology, because my personal experience is when you have structure around it, there's actually some pros, to be honest.
Because you could actually really connect with your child. Let's say it's you and your child on Tekken 10 against father and son in America, and you're having a scrap. Like, there's some bonding there can be done.
100%. Well, I've seen Fran on his computer, and I've monitored it, as a parent should, monitored it, seen what he's doing, what's he talking about. And I've honestly seen a lot of good benefits from his traits that he's developing. Like, he's developing like strategy, thinking about things, leadership, negotiating. I've listened to him with his mates, and they're like, yeah, you go around that way, mate, and I'll get him round the back. And like, he's actually making decisions and utilizing that strategy. So I've actually seen benefits from that, and that's online and computers and stuff. But also as well, some of the apps these kids can use now. There's that CapCut app where you're creating stuff. Like, my son can use
podcast.
Well, my son can use that. Like, they're good, and he's really creative. So I think we've got to, instead of just being like, hey, get off that bloody technology, we've got to lean into that and be like, hey, listen, my son's got a bit of creativity there with his technology. I should allow that. But at the same time, we have a value system within our family where we value nature, we value adventure, we value exercise. So he's always going to have those in his life, So yeah, it's like anything, it's just balance.
Great. Balance, moderation. I'm just making a list of all the different things because we're covering so much here. It's great. All right, let's move on then. Where do we go from here? Let's go to school.
School, okay.
I love school as a topic. We had a conversation at the spa. You were talking about Fran learning about the tutors.
Yeah.
And now basically it's not going to improve his life too much. Now, I'm quite passionate about this because I see so many flaws with the school system. And once upon a time when I was a guest on a podcast, I got asked about what would I change if I was a Prime Minister? And straight away I was like, school. I believe if the school system changes, the entire country will change. I really believe it. Now, like, just a quick example, side tangent. My nana's 90, 2. She learned. So she was born in 1930s. That's right. That's what adds up, doesn't it? Thereabouts. 70, 90, yeah. 30s, maybe even late 20s, right? A long time ago, basically. She learned about algebra in school. Now, the world has changed a hell of a lot since 1920s and 1930s. Yet the school curriculum hasn't. They're still fucking teaching algebra, which, if you're listening and you use algebra now in any part of your life, please comment below. Let me know. I'd love to find anyone in the world that uses algebra as part of their job, as part of their hobby, as part of their any life, whatever, right? Because I bet there's none. So what I'm saying here is the school system is very outdated. It's very flawed. It's got a hell of a lot of pointless subjects like algebra that you obviously brought up your version with Fran, but you are yet to still put it in a way that Fran could benefit from it. So what was that?
So, totally agree with you about the school system. Like, we would love it to change. Of course we would. But, you know, I don't see that happening certainly anytime soon, although I would love it to happen. So, you know, it's almost like there's a certain amount of acceptance to that. It's almost like, right, we're working with these constraints. How can we navigate around that?
Focus on what you can control.
Focus, 100%. Focus on what you can control. So, Fran's obviously got his PlayStation, bloody Fortnite, Spider-Man, all that juicy stuff, very attractive, very attention absorbing, But then you've got competing against that, you've got the tutors, algebra, like whatever, Johnny Redart and, you know, Biff and Baff, the books they're reading and stuff like that. So it's like, how can you expect a child to be interested in these stuff when they're going home and they're playing on all this juicy stuff here? So it's obviously like there's a gap. So, you know, maybe Fran might say to me, oh, well, I'm not interested in that subject at school, or I'm not interested in that. So what I explain to Fran is what we are practicing at school is the art of focus, okay? The art of paying attention and the discipline of basically training your attention, okay? So, they might be talking about Johnny Redart or the tutors or something that isn't stimulating you at school, but can you practice being focused on what the teacher's telling you, so when she asks questions at the end, you remember what she said, so you can put your hand up, and that's going to show you that you can practice paying attention, being focused. So it's almost like setting a new goal, almost. It's like, forget about the subject, focus on training your mind, because the reason you're training your mind like a muscle to recall information, to remain focused, it's like fucking staying calm in among the chaos of the water. It's staying focused in the chaos of the subject at school, So then I'll say to Fran, when you get a little bit older and you start doing things like design or things at school that's a little bit juicier, or later on in life when you're picking something to focus on, you'll have that skill set that you've built. You'll have that muscle developed that you can be like, oh God, I'm breezing at this now. You know, so it's changing how you frame it.
Yeah, great. You've almost changed the intention of school. You know what I mean? It's great. I love it. Let's move on to relationships. So again, let's say, for example, there is a mum or dad watching now and they're thinking, my fucking relationship's a bit shit since we've had the kids. What can they do? Usual stuff, you know. Yeah,
well, you've got to prioritise intimacy, because intimacy will take a nosedive after you've had kids, inevitably, because your priorities change, the kid comes first.
Quick side tangent, sorry. Will that be harder to do if one or both parents aren't working on themselves? Because after having kids, you've got another person to keep alive. Again, I see from my side of the fence where clients struggle to eat healthier. They struggle to get to the gym. They can start adding a little bit more weight. That may affect the intimacy. Now, we can go down the route of so many different tangents we can go with. So for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll realise I am now here. I have been here all along. However, the camera just decided to not record. For those of you listening on Spotify, we'll carry on from where we left off, and you can't see us anyway. So we got to the point of talking about relationships and how a lot of parents listening will no doubt be thinking, when you have kids, the relationship kind of starts going down the pan a little bit. It's a lot more difficult, all right? I see from the self-development side of the fence when I'm working with parents that the intimacy side of things that you said we need to prioritize when children are new. The intimacy side of things can take a tumble because it's difficult to eat healthy, it's difficult to get to the gym, or so people think. So the intimacy side of things drops. Now, I asked the question around how important is it at this point to still do the work on yourself, meaning still really look after your physical self.
Yeah.
Because, you can sit there and we can sit here and say, right, prioritize intimacy. Unfortunately, if your bird's put on 10 stone and she's not physically attractive anymore, the intimacy is going to be quite difficult to, re-spark that fire, isn't it, right? So, side tangent to the intimacy thing, how important is it to still look after yourself?
Yeah, it is very important from the physical point of view, but also the mental point of view and how you feel once you've trained. I mean, a woman goes through a lot with pregnancy and giving birth. A woman goes through amazing things with the body. And inevitably, after giving birth, the woman might feel a certain way with hormones and things changing. And, they might feel as though their body isn't what it used to be, which can affect confidence.
Didn't even think of that, yeah.
Can affect confidence, can affect their openness to intimacy, because they might not feel attractive. They might feel like something's missing.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, from a man's point of view, it's not something that I've noticed, or we tend not to notice as a man, but then women will see themselves.
I can almost, now you're saying that, I can almost imagine a lot of women like, oh, well, let's start turning the lights off. I'll start leaving most of my clothes on, because they don't feel that attractive because they've got stretch marks and they've got a saggy belly now, and it's all this other stuff that women go through that men obviously don't. Am I right in saying it's the man's job to make her feel safe and still found sexy and all that stuff? But at the same time, the woman needs to still see herself as being sexy.
Yeah, 100%. It's a two-way thing, isn't it? The woman should be allowed that space to work on her body, go to the gym, feel good about herself. When a woman goes to the gym and feels good, eats healthy, they're going to feel attractive. They're going to feel in a healthier headspace. They're going to feel more open. They're going to feel more likely to want to be intimate, So there's that side of it. So yeah, I mean, it is important to stay healthy and look after your body, because when you have a child, your intimacy and your sex life and your relationship takes a little bit of a back seat. So a lot of us maybe think, oh, it'll come back on its own once baby's a little bit older. It's bound to come back, but I don't think it does unless we feed that spark. We've almost got to stoke that fire and create a container so that our relationship is prioritized, not only for the love and the connection and the intimacy, but we're going to be better parents as well. And we don't want the child to grow up seeing two adults that ignore each other. We want the child to grow up seeing love modeled. A lot of us grow up just seeing two parents who bicker and stuff and just, we stayed together for you, we stayed together for you. I want my children to grow up and see love and see how a man treats a woman, what love and romance looks like in the family dynamic, and that it's okay and it's not something to be hid away.
Right. Do you and Nell still have date night and stuff like that? Do you ever have time? I know I think there's only one, but do you still have time without the kids or not?
We're building up into that now. Obviously, for the first 12 months, there's the attachment side of things and sort of Nell going back into work and navigating that space of childcare and things like that. So we are working into that. We've sort of, as I said earlier, about like building a life you don't want to escape from. Like me and Nell will have date days or date nights, but baby's there and she's like sat in a high chair and we're having a meal, and it just feels like we don't need to escape from it.
Class.
Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, of course, it would be nice to have date nights and that, and we inevitably will focus and prioritize having that. But certainly at this stage, we don't feel like we need that because, like it's just, we've created a life that we don't want to escape from.
Love it. Class. Let's move on to now the parents themselves. I think alongside this parenting topic, there's a very clear line of a parallel line of self-development as well, and being just doing the fucking work on yourself. The more work you do on yourself, the better parent you'll be. The easier parenting will be. So let's talk about identity and how that can change after becoming a parent.
Yeah.
And how kind of you can manage that. Because again, something I work with clients with, I have a lot of my clients, strangely enough. I know a lot of my clients from when they had no kids to now having 2 kids. And a lot changes, you know what I mean? And it's been my job to help support them throughout that change. And the identity, and when I say identity, I mean their view on themselves changes a lot. But there's often a period of time where there's a bit of disconnect and they get a bit lost. You know what I mean? So would you like to kind of expand on that and how we can, someone maybe listening who is currently a little lost, what they can do about it?
Yeah. So through my experience, identity causes extreme suffering, because we can look at the past and we can see the past event that's happened to us, right? But as our old faithful Peter Crone would say, it's never really the past event you're letting go of. It's the version of yourself who you needed to be at that time. We cling to these stories and these roles of who we were. Yeah, look at the mother, right, who's been the mother all her life, and then a child goes off to uni. She feels extreme suffering because she's no longer needed as the mother. Yeah. Now, we play these roles in our life. Oh, I'm the gym goer. Yeah, I'm the PT. I'm the guy with abs who everyone comes to for advice. And then suddenly you can't go to the gym anymore because you've hurt your leg. Oh, God, my suffering is because I was attached to this identity. So my belief is understanding that I'm more than any role, okay? I'm actually a spiritual being having a human experience. There's something much deeper about who this energetical expression is that is more than any role. Yeah, it's more than any appearance or any parent or anything. And I think if we can live life with that awareness and that recognition, it gives you almost an innate self-worth no matter what. Yeah, no matter what. And I think often, I've done it myself. When Fran was first born, he was born, yeah, and he's like, oh God, I can't go to the gym now, bloody hell. I can't be Dave with abs, So it's almost like I need to let go of that identity. It's just simply not me. Yeah, so I think that's...
So I can almost hear a lot of dads saying, oh, great excuse. I've got kids. I can't be in shape. I can't have abs. I just have to eat shit and sit on my ass and be a dad. What do you say to them?
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, don't be attached to an identity. Okay? Realize you are much more than that. Okay, but that's not an excuse to just be a fat lout on the sofa, right? It's understanding that the reason you are doing the habits or going to the gym, remain healthy, is not because of their identity. So you can say that I'm gym going Dave. It's so that you can actually step into the world being a better role model, a better parent. It's tapping into your extreme, deep-rooted why. We're not doing it so we can have abs and show up on the beach and get Instagram likes. We're doing it so that we can run on the beach with our son, being fit and healthy and showing your son what a healthy man looks like. So yeah, it's no excuse to just sit on the sofa being lazy just because you're not attached to your identity. It's realizing that you're much more than your identity, but yet you still want to be the best version of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Again, so many different connections we've got here. I'll now go back to being okay with what it is, but still committed to the progress. You are now in different circumstances. And I said this to a client of mine recently, actually. He's just had his second child. He's struggling a bit with dealing with it all. 2 jobs, side gig as a personal trainer. He's found the change quite difficult. And one thing I said to him is, look, have you ever had 2 kids before? And he looked at it as if he had 2 heads. I was like, have you ever had 2 kids before? No. Have you ever had 2 jobs and a side gig as a personal trainer before? No. Have you ever been in these circumstances specifically before? No. Okay, so how can you expect to manage them fantastically well all the time, quite quickly after just getting into these circumstances?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when you take that expectation away and you just draw a line in the fucking sand, this is how it is right now. This is the time I've got, the energy I've got, the fucking cards I can play. What can I do with these? Just take one step forward. Realistically, what else does it come down to? Remove the old attachment to the old identity. Remove the thoughts and expectations of what you think you could do when you were single and 25. You know what I mean? Remove all that, get present in the moment, and think, right, what cards can I play with the cards I've got, with the current circumstances I've got around us?
Yeah, 100%. Now, what's calling to me when you're saying that is this, right? When I was single, when I didn't have any kids, and I go to gym 5 days a week, I almost had no excuse to not be in shape, right? I had no real responsibilities. I could just go to the gym whenever I wanted, and I had nothing else really taking away my time, right? That is almost, right, your analogy of climbing a mountain when it's sunny, okay? Anyone can climb a mountain when it's sunny, yeah? We all go to the top of a mountain, it's sunny outside, take a selfie, right? It's almost easy to do. But in my current set of circumstances, where obviously a parent to 2 kids, in a relationship, you've got X, Y, and Z responsibilities, you've got 2 dogs to manage, right? It's almost like if I can maintain being in shape as well as navigating all of life, it's almost more satisfying somehow. It's almost like you are still managing to get into the gym, maybe less, but we'll talk about that in a second, no doubt. But to prove to yourself you can do that despite what's going on in your life is more fulfilling. It's like getting up in the mountain in the rain and still making it to the top. It's like, wow, fucking hell, I made it to the top of the mountain and it's pouring down. Like, it's much more fulfilling than just getting up to the top when it's sunny. So yeah, you have to change things. I mean, I don't go to the gym 5 days a week now, of course I don't. But I go 2 days a week, and I make sure those 2 days are really efficient. So probably now I'm not going to the gym 5 days a week and doing half-assed sessions or 5 out of 10 sessions, 6 out of 10. I'm getting a really efficient workout 2 days a week. So it's, as you say, it's working with the cards you've got. It's understanding that you're not your past, working from now, but making the best of that situation.
Great, awesome. I want to move on to mental health now. In the world, which has on average terrible mental health, something I see a hell of a lot is people with poor mental health looking to have a child or start a family in order to almost help with the poor mental health. Now, I'll maybe divulge my thoughts on that very soon, but what would you say to someone who potentially has got poor mental health or, bouts of it and whatever? Let's say poor mental health, but then they're thinking a child and a family will help it.
I mean, who am I to tell somebody what they should or shouldn't do? And everyone's different. But certainly from my experience, I think choosing to have a child, consciously choosing to have a child, is a very important decision. And it's almost like if you're with somebody in a relationship, having that conversation to get your values aligned, what's your parenting style, what do you believe? You're having a conversation to find out your partner's values on certain things, to decide whether or not you want to bring a child into the world with this person. Yeah, I think that's quite an important thing. Me and Nell, quite early on in our dating life, talked about children. What's your opinion on this? What would you do in this situation? What's your opinion on discipline? X, Y, and Z. You're getting to know a person. You're getting to know, I'll tell you something, me and her would be a good partnership to bring a child into the world. You're making these decisions. You're sharing your values. I think it's so important to share values. And then you're forming this evidence, and you're like, right, before you know it, our love deserves a child. It would be a shame if we didn't bring a child into this world. We've got such a strong foundation. We're in love. Our love deserves a child. That's literally the place I got to before we had a child.
Class.
Because when I had Fran, obviously Fran getting older a little bit now, I was quite happy to not have another child. I was quite like, I've got a son now. I'm dating another person. Me and her can just have our life, blah, blah, blah. And it was almost like got to a stage where I thought, me and her have got such a good connection. We share these values. We're so loving. It deserves a child. And now I say that children are an evolution of love. You know what I mean? It's like if you've got love that is so tightly connected in a good partnership where you've got each other's back, it's almost like, well, the natural progression of this is to bring a child into the world.
Here's a deep question for you then. Does the child come out differently into the world based on the circumstances it was created under. Let's say, for example, you there in a relationship with Nell. This relationship now deserves a child. There's that much love, it'd be a shame not to.
Yeah.
One baby is born. Another couple, quick shag on a Friday night after meeting in town. A baby is born. Do the babies turn out differently?
I don't necessarily believe they turn out differently, but I believe they get a different starting point. Okay. Now, I'm not to say that a child that's born under unloving situation is destined to fail, but what I am saying is there is a lot of studies that now look into pre-birth trauma, if you like, yeah, and a child that is perhaps born under unloving circumstances or trauma or stress during pregnancy can affect that baby. Now, that's not to say that they are destined to fail. It's just they've obviously got a different starting point. So I believe that a child born through love and a healthy, stress-free pregnancy, that when I say stress-free, I don't mean avoiding stress, I mean regulating stress. Okay, stress is okay. It's not a bad thing. It's how we regulate stress. Okay, so I believe that a child brought into the world under healthy, loving circumstances is given a really beautiful starting point into the world.
Great. I was coming from that question with more of an attitude or a thought around the child picking up on the pre-birth energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And thinking about all the different spiritual conversations I've had in the past, and souls choosing to come back at certain times and all that. I was just kind of curious of your opinion there, but I want to move on, kind of sticking with the relationship dynamic almost, to the male and female roles in one, your relationship, and two, as parents. How do you kind of roll that out?
Yeah.
How do you have different jobs to do in the household as the dad, and does the Nell have different jobs and roles as the mother, or do you split it right down the middle 50-50, and how does the male masculine female feminine roles differ?
So I think that through the books I've read and through the understanding I've got through my own experience and navigating the relationship with Nell, a man's brain is wired differently to a woman's. Yeah, look at our evolution. A man looks very linear at the world. Okay, we look very A to B. Okay, because we would have been out hunting for our prey, whatever, hunting for the food. So it's like, right, okay, you get that. There you go. So there, A to B, very linear, very logical. The woman's brain looks at things more holistically, more nurturing, more caregiving. So we almost have a structure within our life that lends itself to our natural tendencies. So if we are planning a day, we're going out on an adventure in the lakes, I am naturally a leader in that department. So I can plan. I'm good at logically saying, right, this needs done, there we go, blah, blah, blah. I like structure, I like control, I like planning stuff. So I lead in that area, and me and Nell go out on the day. She hasn't got any decisions to make because she can just relax, and she's just like, oh, Dave sorted it, it's fine. I'm taking away decisions from her. She can surrender into her feminine and enjoy. So I like structure. I like leading in that area. Nell, on the other hand, likes to be she likes nurturing. She likes to cook. She loves cooking. She puts her love into our meals, and she puts so much art and presentation and love into her meals. She knows that when she's made us a meal and I'm showing gratitude for it, she's like, my man's shown that he's recognised the love that I've given him. Now that just works with us in our dynamic. She loves to be in more feminine traits, and I like to be in more masculine traits. But we can switch hats. Sometimes Nell likes to be in more the masculine, and I would let her lead with certain things. You know, if I see that she's got a particular skill in that area and I perhaps don't, and again, she'll maybe let me be in the feminine in certain areas. So it's a dance, and it's navigating where you naturally feel you fit.
Makes sense. Cool. We've probably got about 5 minutes left before this battery dies. So I want to give you the opportunity to just give any kind of quick fire top tips for parents that we haven't already mentioned.
Okie doke. Let me have a look. So I've got, this was a good one actually. Kids The antidote to anxiety is capability. Okay, so we live in a world now where we're almost taking away our child's capabilities. Well, I'll do it for you. Oh, let's pass your lace. I'll tie your lace for you. It's ease, going back to that desire for just the path of least resistance. But a child that grows up with capabilities or feeling capable of handling life is a child that has a remedy for anxiety. Yeah, because all anxiety is a feeling that I have a fear that I'm not capable of handling later on in the future. Yeah. So anxiety isn't not having fear, it's feeling like you can handle whatever comes up. So me and you've often touched on it. Like we feel like we can handle whatever life throws at us because we've got the capabilities. So letting a child be responsible for handling things is a really important thing. So it's a couple of things I've done in Fran's life where I'll set him little challenges. So we'll go out on our walks, and there was one in particular that jumps out to me. Is there was this big stick, huge stick, right? Big tough stick that a child shouldn't be able to break. And I says, see if you can break that stick. He picked it up and he was like, oh, it's impossible. And I said, think about it, right? I said, I'm not expecting you to break it now, but just during our walk today, just think, how could I break this stick? And it got him thinking outside the box, right? And anyways, all through the walk, he was thinking, oh, can I put it there? Can I? Anyways, he loved this challenge of breaking this stick. Right?
I feel it's like Mr. Miyagi shit.
Yeah. So anyways, long story short, we eventually get to this point where he finds this big stump in the ground, a big tree stump. He puts the stick underneath the stump on a large segment of it, and he bends it back on itself. And he's putting his full weight behind it, and eventually he breaks this stick. Now, I've never seen my son more elated and happy, right? I give him a challenge, and he's seen that he could handle it.
Class.
I've put that stick on top of his wardrobe at home. Class. So now every time he's in bed, he's got a constant reminder of something that he handled in life.
Class.
Now, that's just one example. Giving a child responsibility and capabilities is the number one thing that we can do as a parent, I think. Obviously, as well as having a regulated nervous system ourselves, but giving your child capabilities and responsibilities.
Class.
Yeah.
Good. Any others?
No emotion is good or bad. Yeah. So we fragment, or close off the boxes within ourselves to the point of what we feel is unsafe to feel. So if I feel it's unsafe to feel anger, I'll close anger off in a box and I'll become the perfectionist later on in life. If I feel that fear is not okay to feel, I'll become the people pleaser later on in life because I need to please everyone so that I don't have to feel the fear of abandonment. Yeah. So anger, sadness, fear, and joy are all healthy emotions to feel. And if we banish any of them off, which, looking back at our childhood, don't be a crybaby, don't be a wuss, don't be crazy. Even to a certain extent, opening your Christmas presents as a child, I felt like I couldn't express my joy because it was a bit cringe or too much. So no emotion is good or bad. It's just a neutral expression of energy. And we shouldn't banish that in our children. We should let them express.
Great. Cool. Let's go one more then, and then we'll wrap it up and call it a night there because we have covered a hell of a lot.
Yeah.
Make it a good one, Dave.
So what I would say is question things, right? Yeah. We can all follow that path that's been deeply carved. This is how my dad done things. This is how we've always done things this way. This is how we do things. Question things. Do we really want to do things this way? Yeah. Step back and question things, whatever it may be, whether it's the structure of this, the structure of that, or this is what we do, we go to school. Really? Because you can homeschool. Yeah. Really? Do you really want to go to the NHS and take antibiotics because they've said you have to do that?
There's a topic we should
maybe want to question things. Maybe we should look at the nature's medicine or foraging, X, Y, and Z. Just don't rush into something because we've always done it that way.
Class.
Question things.
Class. Let's leave it on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Did you let Athena get the jabs from the NHS and from school?
Well, Athena's not at school.
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah. The usual baby jobs.
Okay.
Yes or no?
So, controversial opinion, and I don't mind owning my truth with this, as Nell won't as well. We've consciously chosen to avoid getting the vaccinations. through our experience and our evidence, we can only go off our experience and our evidence, we have had a very healthy child with no problems at all. And we've seen other children who have been heavily vaccinated had the opposite effect. That's just our experience. I'm not saying what's right or wrong. I'm not promoting anything to do. It's your path. You've got to do your own research. But certainly from our opinion, we've avoided getting the vaccinations and we've had success with that so far.
Cool. Awesome. Right. Anyone has any more questions on that, they can reach out to you, no doubt.
Yeah.
I'll put all your socials in the description, along with all the other subjects, topics, and everything else we've talked about, because that was very deep, very thorough. We've covered loads. So thanks for your time. And yeah, we shall wait and see what the responses are.
It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, pal.